You guys a question, if that's okay. Is it hard for you to find men who are virgins?
Well, I don't necessarily look for someone who's a virgin, but just remaining abstinent. And, yeah, because I understand a lot of people have a past, and it's not something I would hold against somebody.
Got it.
So, but no, you'd be surprised. There's actually a lot of men who are making that choice to remain abstinent. I have several guy friends personally that are. So, yeah, you'd be surprised.
Does it concern you, though, that, you guys are 39, 41, there's a time limit when it comes to having kids. In furtherance of your goal to have kids, I'm not saying it's bad what you guys are doing, but it occurs to me that you would potentially open up your pool of potential partners. This abstinence thing could potentially be preventing men from wanting to pursue a relationship with you because they're not inclined to wait until marriage. And so it's like almost this trade-off in my mind of, well, what if you would you be willing to make the trade-off? You meet like a great guy, but he doesn't want to wait until marriage. But he would be the guy who you end up marrying, and he will give you children, versus you don't make that choice and then you just never have children. So and again, I'm not saying what you guys are doing is wrong, but I'm thinking, would you guys make that trade-off of, well, here's this guy, maybe I have premarital sex with him, and then I'll have children. I don't know. I'm not.
No, I get where you're going with that. I feel like it's coming from a place like, I'm trying to help you girls out, like your age. But really, no, because to me, marriage is you have to have a like-minded person. This is the man that's gonna raise my daughters. So we have to be very daughters or sons, whatever I have.
You guys are not like born again virgins, correct?
Oh, no.
You've not had carnal knowledge?
No.
No,
virgin.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard about that, and that was interesting. But no, I lost my train of thought. About you have what I believe is, if you're going to partner with someone and marry them, ideally the way that God made it is for life, till death do you part. So I think where sometimes it's that type of compromising, it's your values, it's your standards, is where you're going in life. You have to match. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect and you agree with every little thing, but certain core things need to agree so that you can become one, so that you can build a family that's strong, because life is going to come at you, and it's going to come at you hard. And if I choose someone just, let me give you that, but that's really, I'm betraying myself. I'm betraying, my own standards of values and everything else. It's not worth it to me. I'd rather just, there's more to do in life than just that for that moment.
Can I ask a question?
So,
would you guys ever freeze your eggs?
Go ahead.
I was just curious. As a very quick
Jesus
follow-up.
Christ. Oh
sorry.
My God.
Yikes.
Audio's that bad? I was just curious, as a quick follow-up to this. How many children do you expect to have at 41?
Well, that's a question I get all the time. And there's just so many women nowadays having babies in their 40s. And those babies are very healthy and normal. You could even look at famous people. Halle Berry had her son at 47. Hilary Swank just had twins last year at 48 years old. Wow. I have a friend that had triplets at 43 years old.
Wow.
Her next door neighbor was 45, had a baby. Like, even in my line of work, it's so many women in their 40s having babies. So I'm actually not concerned, to be honest. And even something that I learned from a friend who, she's a nurse, and in her anatomy class, she was telling me, because I work in the medical field and I work with a lot of nurses, and she was saying how actually what she learned in her anatomy class is that women who've never had babies before in their 40s have a lower risk of those babies being autistic, Down syndrome, versus women who've had babies in their 20s and then have babies again later on in life. So that's why I'm actually not concerned. If I just had one, then I just had one, and I'd be content with that. And then also, women in their 40s, when your body starts to prep you for menopause, your body releases all the eggs. That's why you have a lot of women. That's why they're called menopause babies, because they have twins and triplets, and it happens quite often.
I believe that some of those women you cited used surrogates.
No, Hillary Swank, no, she didn't use a surrogate.
No, I'm not saying her, but I think some of them you cited did use surrogates. And I think that that's very common for why that stat exists the way that it does, is because of surrogacy. So, as far as the curiosity of it goes, though, the chances of you bearing multiple children when you're in your 40s are extremely low.
Well, like I said, I've met many women, and even in my line of work, I've met many women in their 40s having babies. So.
Okay.
Can I reiterate my question now? Because it piggybacks off what he's saying anyway. Would you guys freeze your eggs?
That has definitely been a thought.
Are you against it or like in favor of it? Because I know like it's not like something that historically, like in the Bible, they didn't have that option, you know? But I mean, I think if you're not against and if you're in favor of that option, then who's anyone to tell you that you're limited in options?
It's something
you
to
could
contemplate.
Have, like,
I mean, I had a friend that did as well.
I mean, I donated eggs before, so I'm all for like, and I want to be a foster mom someday. I just think there's so many options. There's so many options for you guys. Like, I think it's ignorant to suggest that like your clock is ticking. My best friend is a virgin too, and she's like in her 30s, and she's completely content with that. She's not like religious Christian or anything. She's just content. She's building her business and she's like happy, and she just doesn't want to like go mentally crazy over a guy, you know? And you're entitled to your beliefs, your opinions.
Yeah, and it's not because for, me and Jacobed both, obviously it's tied to our faith and our belief, but I meet lots of people who don't even share my faith, and that's actually a route that they've taken.
Yeah, so exactly. Like, don't feel like you're singled out. And I also think it's kind of anti-mansphere to pitch that like a virgin's clock is ticking. Aren't they like gold mines? Aren't they like trophies?
You're talking way too far from the mic.
Aren't they like gold mines? Aren't they like trophies? They're virgins. Like, who are we to contest that they should like rush into things?
Thank you for that.
I mean, there's a couple reasons why men care about body count, but yes, virginity is something that is favored. It's preferable.
So why should they rush it?
Well, let me take your argument to its furthest extreme. So, do you think that a woman, for example, who's a 70-year-old virgin is preferable to a woman who's like 25 who's had 5 partners? For men,
I feel like at 70, they've committed to not having partners. I don't think that matters.
Yeah.
But, I mean, their virginity actually doesn't really... their virginity really has nothing to do with the fertility component here.
I agree. That's why they could freeze their eggs and live happily ever after whenever they want.
But these are two separate conversations. There's them being virgins, and then you're saying, well, wouldn't they be more desirable?
I'm not piggybacking off of the part where
I'm a bit confused by your point.
I'm not piggybacking off of the part of the conversation where you were asking about like if a partner was interested in sex, whether or not they'd give into it. I think that we have 8 billion people in the world. They'll find someone that meets their standard. They don't gotta adjust their standard for a guy that is potentially Mr. Perfect. I think that's like putting out a borderline predatory message that you need to conform to standards that are beneath you.
Explain what the predatory message is.
That you should get rid of your virginity if you're getting old. No, like, and you should just give it to whoever, even if they're...
Explain to me how it's predatory.
Because a man that like loves you will respect your boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If they don't respect your boundaries, that's predatory to me.
What's been stated that is predatory?
The concept that like they should, like, I think a man, like I said, I'll just reiterate it. I think a man who pushes your boundaries is predatory. Not like what you stated specifically. You're not hitting on them. You're not trying to coerce them.
Nobody was making a should claim. Nobody was saying they should do anything. Right now, we're just
I'm saying the hypothetical. I'm not saying like he didn't hit on them. I'm not saying he said something directly predatory. So you can't like, paraphrase me there. I'm saying the idea, the concept, they meet a nice guy, quote unquote nice guy, right? And he says like, I don't want this to work though unless like this can't work unless we push that boundary of yours. We have premarital sex. No, then he's not the one for you, and that's predatory of him to try to push your boundaries.
Yeah, sure, but no, we weren't making that point as to whether or not they should or shouldn't do anything. We were just asking if they had considered the biological clock.
Yeah.
As far as their faith goes, that's all.
I understand.
I understand.
I'm not saying you guys said anything predatory. I'm saying the hypothetical man in that scenario, Mr. Imaginary, saying like, "Be with me, but you gotta like, you know, have premarital sex." That person is predatory. That Mr. Imaginary in that scenario, and they have someone for them.
What is the scenario in which a man that they would potentially be dating is wanting to have sex with them? How is that predatory?
No, it's like, it's a conversation that can come up. Like, people are attracted to each other, they want to have sex, it's understandable. But to say like, after someone's already set that boundary, which I feel is a conversation had early on, to say later on, like, to try to push their boundaries and say, you know what, changed my mind, I can't stay in this relationship if we're not, you know, banging, then like that is predatory. It's like not, coercion.
It's not,
because you want into the relationship knowing their boundaries. Now you're pushing their boundaries.
Well, I would argue it's not predatory to have a subsequent conversation at some later point in the relationship when perhaps what you want changes.
That's reasonable.
What people want changes all the time.
Okay.
Having a conversation about it is not predatory.
No, absolutely. Like I said, it's about the boundary.
My suggestion in that scenario would be for the end of the relationship to occur.
I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm disagreeing with any hypothetical character in that scenario that would try to push their boundaries and or coerce them into thinking they should have premarital sex or go against their standards for themselves.
Right. If you're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to have sex and you do, unless
then
you guys
can
can
agree to disagree, without it being creepy.
Unless you guys can have a conversation, and if there's any, you know, changes on either side, that just should be the end of the relationship.
Then we agree. Cool.
Okay. So you just introduced like this totally hypothetical scenario so you could use a buzzword of predatory. Okay, cool.
But that's confused. A good conversation.
But the original point was, you're like, well, aren't these women like the manosphere really pedestalizes virginity in women, and so you took issue with us
questioning their belief system for themselves or their boundaries. I didn't take issue to it. I questioned you questioning it.
I mean, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with what they're doing.
Then we're on the same page. Cool.
But it was more so like, well, would you, in this circumstance, in order to secure having children, which you might elevate over your desire to not have premarital sex. So it's really just a...
Oh, no, you didn't phrase it like that. That's like a good new secondary question, I guess. But you asked if they would, based on
in the totem pole, in the totem pole of what they find most important to themselves, it occurs to me like, are you willing to kind of sacrifice in one area in order to secure a desire, which is having a family and having kids? Again, I don't think that
he's asking about the hierarchy of duty. So as far as they go with their religiosity, there's going to be duties which they conform to. So he's asking the hierarchy, which is the most important duty, and is the chastity the most important duty? That's all.
I just think they can have the best of both worlds. That's the point I was making. Like, they can freeze their eggs. They have so many options. They don't have to feel limited or rushed or pressured. So.
Well, there is actually a rush and a pressure.
I disagree.
For women. There absolutely is.
I completely disagree. Well,
first off, let's factor in, let's say there's women who can't afford some of the medical interventions you've suggested. Would you acknowledge that in that circumstance that there actually is a pressure and a rush for women who can't afford the medical interventions you recommended?
No, because why would they want to then rush into having a child if, like, labor is as expensive as freezing your eggs?
Here's the rush. Once you hit a certain age, you can no longer get pregnant. That's the rush.
I hear you. So that's why they could freeze their eggs for the same cost.
Did you not?
Now as having
but
labor.
Not all. Are you aware that not all sects of Christianity allow for IVF or surrogacy?
I agree. That's why I asked them their beliefs. No, I completely understand that, because I know it's not something that existed back then.
Andrew, isn't there a very high, like the whole, when they harvest your eggs or whatever, there's a pretty, I don't know what the percentage chance is of it even working if they do put it in. And then is there anything when it comes to increased risk of birth defects? I know that's the case, for example, when you have pregnancy when you're older to begin with, is having birth defects. I don't know if there's anything
we've actually seen this at a higher scale with the nation of Israel. So they wanted their birth rate to be above replacement rate, so they made IVF free for essentially all of the women who live inside of Israel. And sometimes it takes them 30, 40, 50, 60 tries, and the government covers the cost of all of that. Here, of course, the United States and in the Western nations generally, it's a very, very expensive process, not very viable for most people.
Good to know. Yes. I'm interested. I'm not aware of like the complete numbers, so.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
I feel as though if you guys are virgins because of a religious reason, that you would have faith that God already has everything planned out. So why bother worrying with freezing your eggs, or what's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
There's go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point. And one, again, I've known many women, babies in 40s, completely healthy, normal, no problems. And that's something that I pray for. So that's something I believe God for. And again, if it never happened, then it never happened. But it's not something that I idolize. It's not something that I am holding to, this must happen by this time. That's what I've said, because there's a lot more that I do in life that is still fulfilling and would not require me to compromise my beliefs, my values, my standards.
Okay. Cool. Good times. Well, chat, if there's anybody in the chat that, you know, we've got a 39-year-old virgin, a 41-year-old virgin. Even them out, that's two 40-year-old virgins. Steve Carell, you can get in touch. Really quick, I got a message from that girl. Nick, could you pull up her Instagram again?
Oh my
No wonder you're
goodness.
so on edge.
She says, actually, Andrew, perhaps you can help me with this. This is no. Pull up her Instagram. I'll pull up her Instagram story again. Just pull up that second one. So again, wait, before you pull it up, this is the girl who maliciously locked up a seat here at the table, costing us money and time. And I intend to file a lawsuit for the tortious and malicious interference with my business. Pull up her story again, just for context for anybody who's newly. So okay, 4:30. She's supposed to be here at 4. I message her. So are you no-showing? She says, yeah. Seriously. She's like, whatever. You've been humbled. Obviously, evidence of her intentional, malicious, and tortious interference with our business. Now, Andrew. She says, she messages me now saying, I actually didn't make it because I realized I didn't want my socials to be put on blast. Now, I don't know if this is, there's this thing in argumentation where someone will use, and I think there's a Latin term for this. Someone will use something that happened in the future that they would have not had information on to justify a decision that they made in the past. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like a term for this?
I'm not sure what the specific fallacy would be in this case. So it just sounds to me like essentially she has an excuse because you put her on blast. So she kind of came up with what's called a post hoc justification, right? So
did you say post hoc? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of. She sent me a message. Actually, didn't make it because I realized I didn't want my socials to be put on blast. Actually, before the show, we ask all the girls. We give them a bit of a disclaimer saying, "Hey, heads up. You know, the internet can be toxic. If any of you don't want your socials put in the description of the video because you don't want nasty messages, comments, You guys all heard that part, right? We can take it out if you don't want your socials listed. So obviously check the license plate on that car.
Her pictures, he's like,
oh, okay. You know, she's got a public Instagram, and she, you know, whatever. So yeah, there it is. What's it called? You said it was a post hoc justification. Is that what it is, Andrew?
Yeah, post hoc justification, post hoc rationalization. Okay. Saying that the determination of future events.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.